Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, today, another write-in topic. How internships and work changed what we think of engineering.
So here's how I took this write-in topic. Hey, Luke, don't do any research. Just talk about when you had an internship and what it was like when you got your first job. Was I correct in that assumption?
Isn't that how you take every topic?
Well, most.
Funny that you say that. Somebody just put out a tweet of, it said something like, name a pod, or is there a podcast with two white guys that do sloppy research and go? And then it just had all these replies, and one of our longtime listeners tagged us in it. So
nice.
That felt good.
I think.
I think. Another one, on Reddit, there was a string someone found us through, which is great, but someone was asking for engineering podcasts, and they said, I listen to Unprofessional Engineering all the time. I think it's one of the less popular podcasts.
Oh.
So that was the old kick in the ribs we'll go with. So what did you think engineering was before an internship, a job, anything, school?
So I just assumed it was like what you saw in movies. You know, it was in some cases it was mostly guys wearing short sleeve dress shirts with ties and pocket protectors. And,
I may have done that.
You know, kind of Buddy Holly glasses, and they sat around in rooms with 100 other people just doing calculations all day long. That's what I assumed it was.
So I thought.
What about you?
I thought engineering was going to be me making stuff. I thought
building,
I was going to be
like fabricating,
designing spaceships, like making the parts, like designing them on computers and then attaching them to the spaceship and watching it launch into the sky.
and feeling enormous pride in what you just made.
Yeah, cradle to grave stuff, actually seeing an end product, making a car.
So
I don't know.
Yours was like, you were big. You were like,
I thought I was
going
to be good at stuff, man. Yeah.
Wow, that's a huge letdown, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I got to that point in my career.
So that's what I thought engineering was.
Me too.
And then what I found out through high school, because when I got into high school, I started taking some drafting classes and some pre-engineering classes. In my first AutoCAD, I believe it was AutoCAD 4 or 5, and it was in this big, huge computer that was locked in this big metal box, and you had to get the key off the teacher. And basically, the first day of AutoCAD 101, whenever I was a junior in high school, the teacher hands me a book and says, I need you to learn this and show me how to do this. So basically, I got an
So you were the star pupil.
So I got an A in the class because basically I taught the class and I basically helped the teacher, work on that curriculum, and because he never even knew how to use a computer, period.
Was that the only A you got in high school?
Oh, no. Well, yeah, maybe another one was drafting 102.
Okay.
So when I realized, this is really what it's going to be like, so I was taking like shop classes in metal shop and wood shop, so I kind of liked the tinkering aspect of things, and then I really, as soon as I got my hands on AutoCAD, I was like, I don't have to erase with an electric eraser or use like a lettering guide, and I just thought that like drafting and designing things at that time in 2D was just like the most amazing thing.
So I had a drafting class, 10th grade, started out with the pencil and paper,
that's
all
how
that
I started.
stuff, and then we would go into AutoCAD. I think we probably had like a 10 or 12 maybe at that point. And I thought that was cool. It was cool drawing stuff because that's the first part of me designing my piece that's going on the spaceship.
Yep.
So through high school, I was still all in.
All in.
Plus, I did coding in high school, so like I knew the computer code side of things. Well, yeah, you still had like punch cards back then. So heading into college, I was like, yeah, this is sweet. Like this is gonna make me do what I want.
Okay.
So then do you want to talk about college experience or internships first?
I don't have a lot on college. I thought we were going to focus more on internships.
But okay, so real quick on college. First year didn't change my impression at all, right? Because I was taking English 15 and I was taking calculus, and it was basically high school.
And you were
for a
taking
year.
Pre-engineering stuff in a lot of cases.
Yeah, any of it that was engineering related was kind of pre-engineering. Second year, I got into the more engineering type classes with design of machinery and machine design, which since I was a mechanical engineer, that makes sense. And so I was still like, okay, kind of doing this,
kinda
like
doing
still what I
stuff.
thought it was going to be, but there was also thermodynamics and fluid flow,
you're
things like that.
Oh.
I basically seeded my way through those, so I knew that was not where I was going to be focusing. And the third year was kind of the same. Fourth year, I had taken so many credits that it was pretty easy for me. So I got to drink a lot. I
Okay.
got to take a lot of electives. I got to hang out and do my senior project, which, again, I designed, I think it's an A-beam in a car, like for an
Okay.
SUV. And it's the thing that goes up the windshield.
Okay.
And the goal was to design a new one so that SUVs would be safer in case they roll over. And so it was super cool. My team went and we got a special metal from U.S. Steel.
Nice.
And we went and got it bent into the shape that we designed because we used FEA to test it to see how
cool is
strong it
that?
would be. And this thing would basically eliminate all
rollover
deaths because of how strong it would be and blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't say, oh, this sucker has to be affordable too. They said, we don't care about people's lives. This thing costs too much, so we're never going to possibly do that.
You made it out of vibranium.
Basically. So I felt really good about the project, and I thought this was what I would do in life. And then,
And
maybe
then
that's not what
reality set in.
happened. Yeah. So how about internships?
So did you have an internship?
I did.
Like a legit internship?
I had an internship at Osram, Sylvania in my hometown. So
Okay.
Osram, Sylvania is a light bulb factory.
Okay.
And so that's what they do. It is a really, really big building that's really hot because it's running all sorts of machinery.
To make the
and-
glass for the bulbs,
But
probably.
like cutting the glass and then manufacturing and putting them together, getting all the bits in there. And so I had an actual legit internship there for one summer.
Okay.
What about you? Did you have an actual internship? Did
I
you do
did-
engineering related internshipy work?
I did, but it's so internships were not super common back then.
Yeah.
You really had to hunt for them yourself.
I think they were really starting to be more of a thing when I
Yeah.
was going through, but still it wasn't even like there was an
it wasn't
official
it wasn't
program like they do
guaranteed.
now.
Yeah, like now I think almost everyone has an internship, or you almost have to do it as a part of your curriculum. So
And I think you should.
when I went, I totally agree. When I went through, it was kind of you had to find it yourself. Some did come in occasionally, and basically it was a way for them to get either free or exceptionally cheap labor. So this guy up in Butler that designed play places for McDonald's. So it was more architectural.
That's kind of cool.
But there was a whole bunch of mechanical stuff for like the slides and the way they attached to the ground. So he basically hired me to do that, and he was all board drawing, pencil and paper. And he bought.
What year would this be?
This was 95, 4, something like that.
So Kurt Cobain just died.
Yeah.
You're real sad about that. Let's
Yeah.
build some playlands.
And basically he bought AutoCAD and a computer and didn't know how to run it, so he contacted the school and says, I need someone to do drawings for me. And that's essentially what I did.
Oh,
And it was a
Interesting.
mix of mechanical, a little bit of, but mostly it was me doing like elevations and floor plans of McDonald's play places.
okay.
So,
What
and I'm not going to mention his name,
That's good of you.
but he stiffed me. He kept on saying,
No!
he did. He kept on saying, I was supposed to make like $4.75 an hour or something like that, or $5.75 an hour. And he kept on saying, oh, next month. I worked for him for, I think, like 6 months. And finally I was like, I can't do this anymore. And the people at the school said, yeah, it was supposed to be paid.
Oh,
You should
my
leave.
gosh.
And he owes me, and I was working 20, 30 hours a week. I was doing Saturdays and Sundays and all kinds of stuff. So
You're working 20 or 30 hours a week and working Saturdays and Sundays?
for him, I was working Saturdays and
Oh,
Sundays. So that's how I got the
got
hours
you.
in and went to school.
Oh.
So you know who you are if you're still out there.
Wow, that stinks. Yeah. That's a bad. Well,
But it
maybe
was-
that was a good lesson.
Yeah, it was.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about how that might have changed your view of engineering. But first, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume it's Penn State.
It should be
Their
Penn
internship
State.
program?
They still owe me from all that money that. Well,
You
that's-
paid them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're even at this point. We have no sponsor.
Tons of shout-outs, though.
So many. We have so many write-ins anymore. If you need an internship, reach out to us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
Yeah.
It will be unpaid, but it will be good experience
Oh, my
on
goodness.
community management.
Yes.
Nicholas C. goes to Penn College in Williamsport.
Nice.
Like the Viking Boats episode that we did, and has a sweet GrabCAD channel that you should check out. Concentric Designs is a side hustle. So go. He has a sweet arc reactor, the Iron Man thing designed. It's super cool. Yeah. Jacob K thinks we should do an episode on mowers, as this is his summer job in lovely sunny Florida, right by Disney. Dustin R is from Austin, Texas, suggests we do an episode on construction materials or Kevlar.
Ooh.
Kevlar.
We talked about Kevlar, not specifically, but we talked about the inventor of Kevlar.
Oh, I think that was in our demolition one, maybe.
No, it was our inventors, because Kevlar was invented by a woman.
Oh, yeah, he was a one-trick pony. Right.
Yeah.
Ahmad F. from Perth, Australia.
What?
Helping his 45-minute commute be better.
Oh.
Do you think the commute is done by dingo or by kangaroo?
I'm assuming crocodile.
Oh, that's fair. Good point. Let us know. Mariana G, a fellow podcaster. Didn't tell me the name of the podcast, though, so no love for that. But working on sending you some stickers.
Nice.
Kevin C loves how we tackle high-level concepts, but keep them grounded. It's what we do, Kevin.
It's what we do.
Because we're just not that smart. John D, another road tripper who found us, wants some stickers for the office, so they're on their way, sort of, once I unbox them. Found us on Spotify, though.
Nice.
So go check us out there, folks. And Glenn M wanted us to give a shout out to Rose Holman Institute of Technology, which I was like, never heard of that. Stop talking about your alma mater. Oh no, it turns out it's like the best engineering school in everything.
Well,
like it has like 4 students, but it's rated high on everything. So go check that out if you're not wanting to go to one of those state schools.
And you probably have a lot of money too.
I'm guessing it's costs
expensive.
A lot as well. Anything else for you?
No, and if you want to do some shout outs in the future, make sure you send in your contact info, unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you share.
Make sure you leave us reviews.
Yes.
We're going to be rich and famous any day now.
Any day now.
All right. So tell me about your internship and how it like twisted your view of engineering.
Oh, so
or did it not?
It made me mad.
It made you mad?
Because for me, personally at least, it made me think I was only going to be doing someone else's work. And it turns out that's
it just gave you a great, accurate representation of your
did. So essentially, whenever I went from my internship to my first job, I basically worked for a handful of engineers, and I did their work for them basically in 2D and 3D because they refused to learn how to use the software. So that's essentially what my job was.
They were old guys, not willing to learn. So they're basically what you're becoming now.
Yes. They're becoming curmudgeons.
Curmudgeons. You're becoming a curmudgeon. They were a curmudgeon.
I am a curmudgeon.
Yeah, I'm getting there too.
Yeah.
So let me tell you about my internship.
Shoot.
So Sylvania, this was a great experience, really, now that I look back at it. So I started out there, and the first job that I got was using AutoCAD to edit title blocks to let people in California know that, yes, there is lead in these light bulbs. So it was like I'd literally open up a drawing file, go to the block, type in like something about it, like a couple letters to let
California...
it know. Save, close, repeat for hours. So I blew through those in a couple of days. Some of my other sweet projects. I say this is more of an industrial engineering project, even though I was an ME, it's fine. Time study of a guy working his machine, where the hangups were, how many broken bulbs resulted. So I sat there for 8 hours watching how many bulbs. So the bulbs would go down a conveyor belt, and
You
occasionally...
would physically watch and count?
Yeah. I'd sit there and watch, and they'd have like little hangies that would push the bulbs all to be in the right direction, and they'd drop down, and occasionally they would break there. So I'd have to look at that. And then I'd also have to see where he was walking from. So would he be spending a lot of time going from point A to point B? Could we make those points closer? Like if he was getting stuff to fill the machine with, maybe we could bring that closer,
Sounds
things
really
like that.
boring.
It was amazing. It was probably like 98 degrees. And you know what? Like a 48-year-old dude wants is a 19-year-old kid watching him and not telling him, but like writing notes about what could be done better for his job.
I'm sure
so I had to do that for a whole day 3 times. So that was great. Another industrial engineering one was QA. There was a bin of thousands and thousands of bases. So you know the things you screw in?
Yep.
So those are their own separate piece, and they have like a little glass bead in the bottom of them. I'd have to pull out 1,000 random bases and check to see how many of the glass beads were broken.
So you got all kinds of exposure to all kinds of stuff.
Well, yeah, it really was a good experience. Like these all stunk. These were the worst. I had to do this multiple times. Also, it's hard to pick them up with gloves, so of course you don't use the gloves, but they're really sharp, so you'd cut up your fingers with like
Yeah.
little paper cuts all over. So that stunk. Another one was a little more chemical engineering related. So there was this solution that basically goes inside the light bulbs. They get dipped in it, and that's to make sure they don't black out really quickly. It helps with their life. So I got to work in this little chemical engineering lab where you pour the stuff together, and there's like this cakey substance that you mix in, and then you'd put it in jars. And it was really just like you were baking, put this in, then this, then this. And the whole reason that I was doing this was so that the chemical engineer that was hired there could basically sit around and eat donuts.
Nice.
He was that guy that would bring the donuts in for all the other engineers, and he'd go hang out. He's the one who ran the office pools.
That's awesome.
Like the 10 days without an accident so we get free lunch. He was that guy, and that's because us interns were doing his job for him. So that was great. But I did learn that follow the instructions, because I tried to make, instead of 10, that was the max, I tried to make 12, and the thing was filled to the top, and I spilled a bunch out. And so then all of my juice was no good.
That's not good.
And a mechanical engineering role, sort of, was a submarine came back saying, hey, Sylvania, your light bulbs are garbage, and they black out really fast, blah, 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 blah. So I ran a test where I had them in their little plastic enclosures and just sat there, and every day I'd go in and say, yes, the light bulb is still on, over and over and over. But what ended up happening is that to clean a sub, they like spray the walls down with some sort of cleaner, and the chemicals would hit the light, and it would heat up, and the vapors would then get through the seal because they weren't sealed properly, and that would cause the light bulbs to break. So that was kind of interesting.
That's interesting.
So the one thing I learned for sure is that I did not want to use CAD software as my day job, like pumping stuff out.
See, I'm the exact opposite. So what I found was nobody could do what I did with AutoCAD, because, not to brag,
You're pretty good.
but I will. Not anymore. But at the time, I mean, it was not anymore, but it was crazy how quickly I was able to do drawings and update them. And I mean, I was like the CAD ninja at like almost all the places I worked at. And
now you're basically a regular ninja.
So I knew I wanted to be really heavy on the technical side, really heavy on the software usage side, rather than, kind of traditional, sitting around doing calculations. So I knew that I liked that. And I had the opportunity to do that in a couple of my first jobs, which was really nice.
Yeah.
So
I was taking a look at like different ways that you find an internship, because I guess that's important, because I know I didn't have an easy time. Yeah. Back in the day, I didn't have an easy time. So now a lot of schools offer them as almost like a built-in package. Like they have agreements with companies, or they really help you to find one. When I did it, I had to go to job fairs, which don't just give you full-time jobs. They were hiring interns as well. And I went through a big process with Johnson & Johnson. So it would have been in New Jersey where I was going. And it was just like me sitting in a room with like 50 of my classmates, and then like 10 of us came back or something. And clearly I didn't get that job making Band-Aids or whatever they do. But also online, follow up with people, interviews, things like that.
Now it's super easy. If you go to like Glassdoor or LinkedIn and you just do internship, mechanical, internship, electrical, whatever it is. I mean, there's literally, I did a search this morning for Pittsburgh, and just in Pittsburgh for mechanical type internships, there was something like 285 of them available. And I'm sure some of these are...
Still have to be competent, but yeah.
But I'm sure that some of these are duplicates that are also working with schools, because I think what's happening now is, because it's kind of an expected, you now have to be super competitive. So the higher paying ones are for the better students, and the most of them are paid nowadays to some degree.
I got paid really well.
You did?
I got I think I was getting, this was in like 2002. I got almost $20 an hour. I was rolling.
Nothing.
Even people though, like the way I got mine was through knowing people back home, and that's how I got mine, and they knew I was an engineering student. But also, intern that we had at our work was because he knew me and some people that knew me, and so we hired him on to do some stuff for us. So that's always a way to go about doing it.
So I want to do a quick session on when you're actually interviewing for your internship. I'm going to give some tips.
Oh, I want to hear it.
To the students, and I found a list of like the top 10 questions that get asked during an internship interview.
And this might be a little different than like our resume job getting episode because you don't really have the same experience at this point.
And it's really difficult to kind of, basically you're bragging about yourself during an interview to some extent, but you have to do this with virtually no experience because you're going to do something you've never done before.
Right.
I mean, academically, you may know some of this stuff, but other than that, you don't. So the first one is tell me about yourself. So this should literally, and this is usually the first question. They don't know anything about you. Is tell me about yourself. This should literally be anywhere from 30 seconds to 90 seconds. It should be super short, super high level, and keep it related to what you're doing. Like, oh, I was a diver in high school and I like to swim and camp. That really doesn't do anything. It has to be kind of related to school activities, engineering related activities, or whatever kind of internship you're going for. What are your strengths? This is an easy one. This is where you start to brag about yourself. This is where you talk about classes that you've performed well in. This is where if you have some experience maybe on like the shop floor doing work over the summer, working at like a fabrication facility or something that's loosely related to engineering, you want to make sure that you call those out. The one that always gets everybody is weaknesses. Now, you and I don't have any.
That's the good thing about us.
I mean, so it's really difficult for you not to answer these questions.
Like, what's your weakness? Like, I'm just, too good looking.
Yeah. So don't give the typical answer, oh, I'm a perfectionist, or oh, I'm too detail oriented. They know those are like standard. Be honest. Be like, you know what? I didn't do really well in public speaking, and I get a little nervous. I'm in front of crowds sometimes.
Is that what you had? I'm dyslexic and colorblind. Did that score you your job?
I didn't tell them. So make sure you're honest about your weaknesses, but also at the same time, don't make sure those weaknesses are things that can really affect you from getting the job. Keep it like on the peripheral of kind of what you're doing.
Just honest enough.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is another big one. Again, you want to be
working here.
you want to be really goal oriented here. So talk about honestly where you want to be. Oh, I'd love to be doing mechanical engineering at a firm like yours, or perhaps with you, and I'd love to have some leadership role opportunities. So keep it all really positive. Another one is accomplishments. So again, you're in college, and your accomplishments of being able to, do beer bongs doesn't count, or being able to pull all-nighters doesn't count as accomplishments. So this is where you go back to high honor roll, different presidential awards of excellence and different things that you've gotten that way. And then probably the next most important thing, other than kind of being honest, is when they ask about what do you know about the company, do your research.
Yeah, that's fair.
You have to know what they do, the type of work they do, industries they're involved in, some of their history perhaps if you can find it. That way they know that you're really putting the effort into understanding the company and the type of work you're doing.
I'm amazed by the people that I interview sometimes that I'll be like, hey, what do you know about the company? And they're like, I mean, they might as well just say, I don't know, I want a bigger paycheck. And that kind of hurts. So yeah, do your research. That's good advice, Luke.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
So I have a mini rant. I know you have a rant,
go ahead.
But this is tied to this one, and then we'll go to the rant here in a second. So the other thing too is absolutely 100% before you go to any interview for an internship or for a full-time job coming out of college, you need to basically delete your Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account, because my brother-in-law hires like hundreds of people a year. He's a placement agency for high-tech companies. And the first thing he does before he reads your resume or goes to your LinkedIn profile is he Googles you, looks at your Facebook page, looks at your Twitter, looks at your Instagram, and decides if you're the kind of person that he wants to hire or place at a company. And it can't be pictures of you being an idiot, or it can't be overly political stuff, and it can't be, you have to really make sure that your social presence is about as neutral as it can be. I
took a class about how we're supposed to hire people, and I think they either said we're not allowed to or not supposed to look at that.
But everybody does.
But yeah, let's be fair.
And it's in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Whether you're allowed to make the decision on that, it's in that hiring. If I have you who has a terrible social media presence.
It's true. That's science.
And I have another person that is equally qualified and just as good, and they have a good social media presence, guess who I'm probably going to pick?
Absolutely.
Not you.
All right, so let's take a quick break for this week's Luke's rant.
But it's not Luke's rant.
It's a James rant.
I'm handing it over.
So I'm walking the dogs today. This is literally a today thing.
Oh, no.
Walking the dogs today.
No.
Now, keep in mind, I put out my recycling on Tuesday night. Wednesday, they pick it up, and they do it early. They jangle all the bottles around. It's great.
Check out our recycling episode.
Check out our... Nice, Luke. It's like we switched roles. This is great. So I'm walking the dogs. I look in the can, and I notice all my stuff's still there. Now, I can't keep which week, it's every other week, which week I put my recycling out. So I know I put it out last week, and they didn't pick it up. So this week, clearly, is the week they're supposed to do it.
Clearly.
I look in, and there's like a little pamphlet sitting there. And they go, hey, we changed the way recycling works. So now, instead of putting all your recycling in this big bin that we gave you, now all you're allowed to put in here is items 1, 2, and 3. You can put in cardboard boxes, but they all have to be broken down and set inside of there, and they have to fit inside of the bin. You have to put this kind of bottle, but not this kind. All of the caps have to be off and set in here. And then you have to have something else cleaned and put away, but these have to be in their own separate bag inside the bin.
Guess who's not recycling
Yeah,
anymore?
guess who now has more garbage going in their garbage can? And we all know that I care about my carbon footprint. I have made that clear time and time again.
Your banner is clear.
That's right. But now, for the next 10 days before I move to another county, I am going to be throwing all of my recycling in the garbage.
You're going to buy extra stuff just that you could recycle to throw into the regular garbage.
Absolutely.
To prove a point.
Absolutely. Not going to do that. But I should.
You should.
But, that really annoys me because, if you're going to the effort to recycle, I understand there's reasons and they're probably reducing costs and things like that. Make it easy on me. Right. Or else I'm not going to do it.
People aren't going to do it. That was a good one.
Thank you.
Nice work.
All right. Whew. I'm all fired up. So let's move on to how work changed your view of engineering, Luke.
Okay.
And go. And you've had a lot of jobs.
I actually
kind of in the mainstream of what you do, though.
Yeah. So I've always been really technical, very heavy on the software usage side of things. So my very first real job, was working for a telecommunications company. And I basically designed in 2D and 3D broadcast equipment for MSNBC when MSNBC first started back in the late 90s.
WNBC.
We helped design their set and their studio. The coolest one, though, was we built mobile production vehicles for the NFL. So basically, you imagine a tractor trailer that drives from game to game, and all of the telecommunications equipment is packed inside that trailer.
Didn't John Madden drive one of those?
Because he doesn't fly. And the coolest part of that job was we used to take little remote control cars because to run cables in the bottom belly, you would actually take a remote controlled RC cart and drive it with a fish line from one end of the trailer to the other. So that was probably the coolest thing that I got to do with that company. I quickly started working at a reseller for Autodesk products, and that's where I started getting involved in Inventor, and that's really kind of where I ended up. I didn't have a ton of industry experience. Most of my experience came through like training and working at resellers and working with customers that way. So that was really probably one of my first. I had a couple other teaching jobs and stuff like that, but that was my first real job.
I think you'd be an okay teacher. Like you'd be fun and you'd like I think you'd do a good job. I think you'd teach us pretty well.
I hope that I did when I did teach, but most of them didn't like me because I was really specific about everything. So
interesting. Doing things right. Who knew?
For engineers. First job.
So first job, how about first interview? I can't remember what it was called. It was like a 3D, 3B, something, but it was in like Beaver Falls. Okay. It was literally a company that just makes buttons, I think. Like you press those big red buttons to shut down a machine. It was like injection molded. Okay. And like I interviewed there. I went all dressed up in my like short sleeve shirt and tie, I'm sure.
I'm sure you did.
I did not get the job.
Good.
I'm not too unhappy about it. But I remember getting the call telling me I didn't get it and how like disappointed I was. But later at my next job at Algor, which is a finite element analysis company.
You got that right away?
Yeah, that was basically out of college.
That's cool.
Another guy that we hired maybe half a year later, interviewed for that button pushing job too, and also didn't get it. So that one was okay. It had nothing to do with me knowing anything about engineering and all to do about me knowing how to use SolidWorks.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason they hired me, even though I couldn't constrain parts. And that then rolled into finite element analysis expertise, we will say.
Nice.
That followed up by Bechtel Bettis, where this was my most industry knowledge, where I was working on designing fuel rods, things that go into nuclear reactors, things to transport fuel, all of that stuff. And after a year and a half of that, I decided, well, this is the worst. I'm going back to the world of software.
Yeah, software is a good gig.
Yeah, and so that's where Autodesk showed up with doing sales, customer support, customer success, tech marketing, community management, digital marketing, and
I loved working at
that's
the
where we get
I
here
loved
now.
working at the reseller, because at the reseller we did a lot of contract design and engineering work. So I worked for Westinghouse doing some nuclear reactor stuff. I worked for a company that built like heavy equipment for like land moving, like bucket trucks and forklifts, and I did all kinds of engineering and design for those folks as well. But the one thing I did want to ask you, do you remember I have one, your strangest interview ever? Or didn't you have any strange ones?
Give me yours while I think about mine.
So whenever I left the reseller and I went to go work for Blue Ridge Numerics, who Autodesk later acquired, and that's how I ended up at Autodesk. So I go to interview with a guy by the name of Kevin O'Shea. So I'm all dressed up in my suit jacket, and I'm all ready to go for this interview. And I walk into his office, and he's wearing a tie-dyed tank top. He has no shoes on and shorts, baseball cap on with his bare feet up on his desk. And his first question is, so tell me about yourself, Luke. And basically every other person that walked into the office during the interview, they had no shoes on.
They kind of fit that persona.
It was a very kind of laid back environment. Everybody at Blue Ridge was amazing. I loved working there. You know, we ended up getting acquired, and that's how I ended up here. But that was my strangest interview by far with Kevin O'Shea.
So I'll go two extremes. One, interviewing at Bechtel, I roll up to the place, and it turns out that there was an emergency at the facility, which that's not the kind of facility you want one at.
No.
Every day they have armed guards with big automatic weapons, like letting you in and whatnot. And so I asked the guy, like, if I'm at the right place, and he's like, oh yeah. And then he starts giving me directions, but he does so by pointing his gun, like in the way where I need to turn around and drive to. So that was really intimidating.
Okay.
Like I was real thrown off. And then when I came back to Algor/Autodesk, the person that was hiring me, she hired me originally as well. But I come in all suited up and whatnot. And so I come in the door during my interview time, and she looks up and she's like, oh, James, don't you look cute? Well, the boys will be down to take you to lunch. You know, you'll start in a week. And it's just like, oh, okay.
Oh, how
so
nice.
two extremes.
Oh.
So how did work change what you thought about engineering? Did it? Did it not? Was it good or bad?
So I think, and it's still this way today, it's changing. There's still this kind of old school engineering where they're just doing calculations and like theoretical type stuff, and then there's the people doing the work. Software has definitely changed the way engineering happens, I think, for sure. You know, being able to run, you know, FEA and CFD and calculations and process analysis tools right inside of one piece of software is crazy nowadays. So I think what's happening is the younger generation of engineers that are kind of in their 30s and 40s now and younger, they're going to be doing everything themselves because it's quick, it's easy, tons of computing power. And I think it's going to be more of that, where traditional kind of engineering, they kind of have a person do it for them. They're doing calculations and someone else kind of does like the grunt work, I'll say. So it's changed where I think the way I did it as a user of the software is going to be more common moving forward.
Yeah. So for me, it's definitely different than what I thought it was. I clearly am not making a part, putting it on a spaceship, and sending it to the moon. But I would say all of the things that I've learned actually have been really valuable and helped me get to a job that I don't hate, which is a pretty good goal to have. I've taken a really big path with a bunch of different jobs, and a lot of them aren't even really that engineering related. But having that technical background is what allowed me to have those and kind of excel at them.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing out of all of this rambling of 35 minutes or whatever we're at, is what I want people to take away from this is that even though you're going for engineering, it doesn't mean you're going to start doing design work. And that might not really be what you want to do anyways. You
Yeah.
might find out that's not for you, which is what I found out. But having that engineering degree opens a lot
Yeah.
of doors for you.
Yeah.
They know that you're analytical, you can solve problems, you can work under pressure, things like that. All those corny things they say,
Yeah.
it turns out it's true, and that you can go apply for any sort of random job with this degree and maybe be at the top of the pack.
Yeah, and I also think the other good thing is when you kind of get out of the engineering, you and I have almost identical kind of histories here, is that technical background is going to serve you so well outside of engineering. I mean, you and I both do marketing essentially right now in some way, shape, or form, whether it's social or technical or product marketing. And if we didn't have that technical background and understand how the tools work and how the industries work,
who uses them,
who uses it, I mean, all of that stuff comes in, handy whenever you're, writing positioning and messaging documents. And I never thought I'd be writing positioning and messaging documents. So I really do think, don't think you're going to be doing engineering for the rest of your life if you hate it. Stick with it. Find a software company or a company that's looking for like tech marketing or product marketing, and take that engineering background and leverage it there if you end up like us, where we're kind of not good at and or hate the engineering side of things.
Exactly. Hopefully all of you in college looking for internships got something out of this. Maybe some of you who are already engineers listening to us can commiserate with what we thought we were going to be, and don't be too disappointed that you haven't sent something to the moon yet.
Yeah.
But until next time.
See ya.